The Hog's Eye is brought to you by TicketClub.com, your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Whether you're looking for game, theater, or live performance tickets, don't sweat it. TicketClub.com has you covered. So make sure you're going there for all your live entertainment needs, and make sure you're clicking over to them from the banner at the top of thehogsdie.com.
By fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Pow! We are back, Hogstine Nation. Sean is on vacation. He's in D.C. I told him he could come over and record, but I think he's busy doing other things. So, he's too good for us, guys. But, yeah, well, I do smell. I smell pretty bad. But we're back. It's a midday show, which means it's a game preview show. But this is Redskins world, and in Redskins world, you can't just have a quiet week go by to prepare for a big game against a division rival, right, Steve? Right, Jamal?
No, there's always drama all the time. You can't go a week without drama in Redskins land.
No, we cannot.
It's been rough these past couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm happy I've been busy at work because I've not just sat on Twitter being like, what the hell, what the hell, what the hell, what the hell. Because that's kind of been my reaction to what the Redskins just did here, guys.
Yeah.
Ruben Foster? Seriously?
Look.
I mean, I don't know what to make of this. I'll be honest. Some people say it's an overreaction by some fans to threaten to quit the team over this. I don't necessarily blame people for feeling that way. This guy's, he's got a lot of baggage with him, to put it nicely. But, let's be not so nice here. And, Steve, you said you looked up some info about the charges he might be facing, things like that.
Let's do a little background here first.
Yeah.
He's a 2017 first-round draft pick of the 49ers. Came out of the University of Alabama, so he's back in Tuscaloosa North, up here in D.C., he's had a whole history of bad going all the way back to the combine. He got thrown out of the combine for arguing with a nurse. And he also failed his drug test at the combine when they found him with a diluted sample. And a diluted sample means that he's using a masking agent, and so that's why it's a positive. Then he got arrested this past January for a marijuana possession charge. And, spare me for those of you who believe in marijuana, that's fine. But the point is, it's currently illegal and it's against the NFL policy. That's all that really matters for this discussion. Then he got arrested again in February, a little over a month later, when the mother of his child accused him of domestic violence and making threats. And they tacked on a weapons charge to that. This woman did recant her story under oath. And so the domestic violence and the criminal threats charges were dropped. But the weapons charge stayed, and so he pled guilty to a misdemeanor and a plea bargain. They dropped it to a misdemeanor and a plea bargain. He pled to that. He's on probation right now for that charge. That happened in California. The marijuana charge is in Alabama. And so he's on probation in California for the weapons conviction. What happened this past weekend was at the 49ers team hotel in Tampa on Saturday night. This woman showed up or was invited or somehow was at the team hotel, and there allegedly was an altercation, or an incident. And so the cops were called, and then Foster was charged with domestic battery in Florida. And so at that point, then the 49ers had enough of him, and they cut him first thing Monday morning, or waived him Monday morning.
Right.
And the Redskins, in their infinite wisdom, picked him up. So what he's facing, since he's a Redskin now, we'll go over this. What he's facing in Florida isn't all that serious in the grand scheme of things in terms of criminal stuff. He's facing a misdemeanor battery charge. Now, it becomes domestic violence because Florida defines domestic violence as including a family or household member, and that includes parents of a child, regardless of if they're married or if they're living together or not. So that's why it's domestic, but because she is the mother of his daughter. And so what he's and what battery is in Florida is actually and intentionally touching or striking another person against the will of another or intentionally causing bodily harm. That's battery. That's in what he's facing is a maximum of a year in county jail. You don't go to prison for misdemeanors, but maximum of a year in jail. The statute, interestingly, in Florida requires a mandatory minimum of 5 days in county jail, regardless of any other aspect of the sentence.
Okay, and that's interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of a nod to that's for the domestic violence part of it. If it's domestic,
sure.
He has to spend 5 days in county jail. So that's what he's facing in Florida. It's going to probably take a while. He's obviously already out of jail. He's in D.C. as we speak. So the case will take months at a minimum. My guess is that if she doesn't recant again, because this woman has little credibility herself, I would assume there would be a plea bargain because he would be a fool to go to trial on something like this. So what you will probably see if she does not recant, if the case stays, is you will see a plea bargain and he will do his 5 days in jail and then he will have, probation and community service. That's almost the lesser problem. The big
that's bad. That would ruin most of us for a couple of years.
But the bigger problem is that now he's got a probation violation, a potential probation violation for his California weapons conviction. What a probation violation means is, then you revoke. You go to what's called a revocation hearing, and then they revoke your parole or your probation, and then you have to go serve the sentence as imposed. And so that's a whole nother problem for him, because California could do that if he's convicted. And so what you're talking about really is waiting for the Florida case to play out, and this is in Hillsborough County, which is in Tampa, and then at some point later, the state of California may get around to trying to revoke his probation. So that's the much bigger problem, because that could mean jail time.
Yeah. Now, and would that be he'd have to serve the full weapons charge then, I assume?
Yeah, most likely.
So, that's
what
probably
the
a couple years.
Usually go for when they do a revocation is they ask the court to impose the full original sentence.
Okay, and I don't know California law, and I know you're not a California lawyer either, but I'm assuming a weapons charge comes with a pretty stiff sentence.
It was a misdemeanor weapons charge. They pled it down to out of a felony to a misdemeanor, so it's not going to be him going away for a long, long time. It's something much shorter than that, because it's only no state puts you in prison for a misdemeanor ever. He may do some time in jail.
Okay,
so that is.
I've forgotten that you said it was a misdemeanor.
Well, he pled down to it, which is smart.
Okay, yeah, well, obviously.
So that's the criminal part. The other part of this is that the NFL has placed him on what's called the commissioner's exempt list, and that basically means he doesn't count against the 53-man active roster for the Redskins. He can't play in a game. He can't practice. He can go work out. He can go to meetings. He can do sort of like tangential things for the team, but he can't do anything that actually matters. That is going to go on until the NFL does its investigation of this incident, which could take, sometime. It took them forever to get the Ray Rice thing. The odds of him playing this year are slim to none, and Slim's on a train out of town.
And the odds are he might even have a suspension next year. It sounds like. From what you're saying.
Yeah. And by the way, finally, can you wrap? But the thing about also the NFL's domestic violence policy is if they find you're in violation of the policy, there's a baseline of a 6-game suspension that can go up or down depending on the facts of the case, and so that's what could happen. They do not need a conviction to declare you in violation of the policy. People do not understand this.
Right.
All the standard basically is put in civilian terms is if the NFL thinks you did it, then you're in violation of the policy, because there's so much more that goes into a conviction. So they just need to think he slapped her, and that'd be it for him.
Yep.
If they say 60-40, then he's done.
If it's 51-49, it's more likely than not. Basically.
Yeah. Got it.
So you're
all right.
better off just not making any
Steve
type
broke
of
down
noise.
the kind of legal
What's that, Jamal?
ramifications. Jamal, I'd like to get your kind of more personal take on all this, and where your headspace would be as just a Redskins fan with this move.
Well, there's a lot of different angles to look at it. So I guess I'll try and focus on one angle, or more so what I thought about, because it's way too many. It's just way too much to cover. But what I will say is, before, when he was actually released and in jail, they haven't. I don't think he had made waivers yet. There was just speculation that the Redskins can get him out. Honestly, I personally, I was like, I understand that he has talent, but I personally just felt like him personally was just not worth. It was not worth all the trouble that comes behind it, and it's just not. It's not necessary. It doesn't matter how good of a talent he is. Sometimes these things, you don't have to worry about it. There's other potential players that you can get in the draft. There's other potential players that you get in free agency. C.J. Mosley, for one. Obviously, it's not going to be easy because the Ravens do value C.J. Mosley, clearly. He's a great inside linebacker for them. There's other linebackers out there as well. I listed them to my friends. I don't have them prepared at the top of my head right now. But there was like 4 or 5 that I was talking to my friends that there you will have a potential to talk to these people if you wanted to make an upgrade at inside linebacker. So initially, I felt like there was just no need. I was against it. It's nothing about him as a player, but it's everything off the field and the attention that it brings to the team. Just felt like he didn't need it. So with it happening, I personally, and this is actually when I felt this way back in May when the situation happened, when she recanted and all the trouble that he went through then. I felt that's why it's always important to hold your judgment. Because even people have their speculation, they feel like they have conspiracy theories, like he may have been a reason why she recanted. He may have paid her off, may have threatened her, anything. But all I can take from that is face value. I don't know these people. I don't know Ruben. I don't know the woman. All I know is she recanted her story, and then there was on video of her doing that. So with that being said, when Ruben was claimed by the Redskins, I stated my opinion. I was against it initially, but now that he's there, there's nothing we can do now. There's nothing I can do. So the only thing I can do is wait for a judgment from the court system and wait for the investigation to either clear him or determine his guilt, if any. And I mean, at this point, it's unfortunate to see Skins fans, first off, assuming he's guilty, one, or knowing his history and knowing that there's no other way around getting the fact that he has a troubled past, assuming he's innocent. And I understand the little innocent until proven guilty, but there's also a middle ground where you can stay neutral and not even have an opinion. And you can stand on that ground and not cause any trouble. And there's a lot of people that's going out their way defending the guy that they don't know and then accusing the guy of being something they don't even know this man and they don't know the story behind anything. So this whole situation exposed a lot of Redskins fans that we follow, but it shed light on the media and certain people of the media, not everybody, but certain people and how they're just eager to get the pot stirring and stuff like that. So it exposed a lot of things, just this one signing or one waiver claim.
I mean, for me, I get it from a football standpoint. He's a guy, we need an inside linebacker. He would be a great fit. Yeah, Jamal's right. I mean, there's plenty of others, which is, I think a very important point. Plus, they can draft somebody. But having Ruben Foster in the building and playing on a football perspective is a really good thing. But I just, at a minimum, this guy's a knucklehead, at least. Trouble follows him. He can't get away from it. Kyle Shanahan was very, very candid today in his press conference that he gave to the 49ers media, and very candid. I recommend everybody go out there and read it. I didn't watch it. I read it. Apparently he got emotional, and it doesn't really come across as well in the text. But Shanahan basically said, they got to the point where any one more incident, and they were just done with him. Whether it was guilty, innocent, whatever, they're just going to be done with him, and that's what happened. And he stressed over and over again that Ruben does not make good decisions. Said that repeatedly. For me, whether or not he's criminally guilty of domestic violence or not isn't really the point. I think there's a world of difference between the team defending one of its own. If this happened to a Redskins player, I don't want to assign a name to it, but if one of the Redskins got charged with this, I think there's a huge difference between the team backing its player and saying we're going to wait for the criminal system to play out before we make a judgment, and bringing a guy in who was in jail 2 days ago. I think that is a huge difference, and I think, frankly, the fans out there who are defending it just need help. I think you guys – I don't mean it like that, but, I mean, I don't understand how the team and how fans can't see what a horrible example it is, and I can't see the Redskins as a franchise having any credibility when they talk about domestic violence when they bring a guy in who was in jail for it 2 days ago.
I mean, I'll bring up a past example just to tell you kind of where I come. When it comes to the domestic violence stuff, I have a friend of a friend who, the day after the whole Ray Rice incident happened, when the story broke,
before the video, or
right after the video,
okay.
we had a party over here, and this guy showed up wearing a Ray Rice jersey.
Totally,
we've never let him back in our house since. Yeah, and so I mean, like, if you can't come out defending domestic violence, even if the guy's still just accused, you can't take a stance defending. Well, it's a football move, for my team. That's not a justifiable reason to defend these guys. It's good for the team.
Well, and I also don't think it's just what a position a lot of the fans have taken is that he's not been proven guilty yet. It's
a terrible hill to die on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I couldn't say it any better than that. It's a terrible hill to die on. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. And I think the Redskins they're not completely tone deaf. They knew they had to put a statement out. They knew they were going to take criticism. But the way that they went about the statement, it's just laughable.
Yeah.
It's just
I know we got to move on, but I think we have to at least touch on that statement and the fallout from the statement now.
Yeah.
First off, they misspelled Doug Williams' name.
Because we got the press release. Did you see that? I don't know if you guys saw it. We got two.
I saw the first one online.
The second one, we got it later that evening, and I read it like 4 times trying to figure out what the difference was until I realized they were correcting Doug Williams' name. That was just the beginning of the travesty.
So they misspelled Doug Williams' name. Which, okay, that's just funny. But then they went through this whole thing. Oh, we talked to all the players about him. We've done research into it. And the press starts digging. It doesn't sound like they've talked
far either. They went into the locker room and asked John Allen what he said.
And Allen said, nope, didn't talk to me.
Exactly, and that's the thing. You asked Jonathan Allen, you asked 3 other players outside of Jonathan Allen. One other player outside of Jonathan Allen told you no. 2 others said no comment. Like, I mean, look, you went out your way to say you talked to his teammates. All right, well, look, they didn't ask 4 potential people that knew Foster at the time he was at Alabama. Because I'm not sure how knew him at Alabama. I think they may have been in different classes. I'm sure,
but they're tight. So they're tight though.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. And so I'm just saying, like, 4 potential people that knew Ruben Foster while he was at Alabama, and none of them went out their way to say that I vouched for him, and I don't blame them. But why on earth would you go out your way as making a public statement like that to say, we spoke with his teammates at Alabama and they gave us the okay?
Mm-hmm. And another thing that they didn't do, and that was done by at least a couple teams I've heard, is they didn't even talk to the police in Florida.
Can I address this? Because I know some people, the position of some folks who aren't really in the know about these kind of things is, why the police wouldn't give up the police report, and so what's the point? Well, having personal experience in this, no, they're not going to give you a police report, but generally speaking, if another investigator or a corporate representative calls and says, tell me about this incident because this is one of our guys, generally the cops will talk and will give you the basics of the story. They're not going to give you the police report, but they will talk. And so if the Redskins had picked up, the Redskins security had picked up the phone and said, we're Redskins security, what can you tell us? It's very likely that they would have talked to them.
You'll get it. You didn't hear this from me.
You won't even get that. No, it won't even be that. It'll just be, this is what, no? They'll just say, this is what happened, period. They'll just tell them, most likely. Unless you're a defense counsel, you know.
Sure. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well,
but it's a bigger point, though. It's like this whole asking the players thing. You know, number one, wouldn't John Allen be player number one you would go to? Mr. Model Citizen.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he's the leader of this front seven.
Leader, all that stuff. And, you know, they didn't. But the bigger issue is, why did they mention this at all? Why do you use justification that we talk to the players? Why do they use talking to the players as justification for signing a player, for signing with a player?
But not only that, when you make that type of statement, and then you leave Jay Gruden the only person responsible for answering these questions, because you know for a fact that these players. Now, two things. One, the first thing is, you know for a fact that these players aren't going to say anything. But two, there was probably a meeting held, if anything, just an assumption on my end, that they came before the media scrum in the locker room. They probably had a meeting already where they already going to come to a consensus that nobody is going to mention or vouch for publicly. They're going to vouch for Ruben Foster. So that's two things. The question is, why leave Jay Gruden responsible for this media, you know, this responsibility for Ruben Foster and not have a message from the front office when collectively, first of all, Jay Gruden was game planning for Philly. He mentioned that in his press conference. But you have Bruce Allen and Doug Williams, who, I mean, they gave a paper statement. They still didn't talk to the media face-to-face. They still didn't give any voice answers. They still didn't answer any impromptu questions, which they could have, and that would have gauged their level of sincerity and any type of other things that you can key on in terms of an interview like that.
Well, and I'll just point out why not just talk to the players, period. You know, like these guys are just there. It would take Bruce maybe 10 minutes to walk down from his office to the locker room to talk to these guys.
But why? But yeah, and certainly just talk to them. But more importantly to me is, players are players. They're not management. They're not employees. Why are you putting your players in a position where if you don't know, you're tone deaf, you're completely ignorant. You know that they're going to be faced with questions, and why are you using them as an excuse to cover your own actions? You knew that this was going to be.
Yeah, it's a human shield situation.
You're using your own team exactly as a human shield. It's just crazy.
And one of the things that I had mentioned to somebody when I talked about this, now I don't agree. I don't agree with the fact that they even put their players in there through their players' names out there so they can get asked questions. But the first thing I would have said is, if you were going to mention that you spoke with people, this should have been an organizational conversation. And obviously you don't have that much time to react to a situation like this, but you have to gauge the interest in terms of the perception that he'll receive in the entire building at Redskins in Ashburn, I guess headquarters. I think that's headquarters, whatever. You have to understand these type of things. I personally feel like if you're going to do something like this to this extent with that much media coverage, you have to understand the implications that someone who has this type of reputation, not saying that he's guilty or anything, but has this reputation, and if he's found to be someone who is guilty of this, you have to, this person will possibly have to face, the women or maybe the administrative staff that you see there every day. It's not just the men. It's not just the players on the team that you have to deal with. There's other people that you have to deal with, and this person will see them every day.
Female staff members, yeah.
Yes.
The way
I mean, we've dealt with some of those women who work in that office. They're
And I'm saying, and that's if they were going to talk to people. It's not just these players. So I don't think they should have ever mentioned that. But at the same time, if they were going to say something like that, it should have been an organizational thing, not just.
And it should have been true, more importantly, because listen how they asked Jay this question at the Wednesday presser, and so the way the transcript, we weren't there, but the way the transcript reads is he's responding to a question on if the Redskins reached out to team leaders. His answer was no. He says no. I think the players were all honed in on what they're up against Philadelphia. Yeah, so Jay just flat out said, no, we didn't talk to team leaders, which is directly contrary
Well,
to...
at least he's not towing that stupid company line.
I mean, it's just directly contrary to what the statement that the team put out. You know,
They
it's
don't
just,
think like
Whoever, because I don't buy that
everything.
Doug Williams actually said that quote at this
Oh,
point.
listen,
I think
can
that
I
was
tell
written by a PR
can I
guy.
tell you how that works? Having done this too, you write the quote first, and then they'll decide later whose name to put on it.
Yeah, they just put somebody's
Yeah, I
name
know.
on this.
Yeah, this is
Steve,
Tony
I've
Wiley's.
done it once or twice
this is
myself.
Tony Wiley and company writing that statement, and the statement, other
Right.
than using the players, was a pretty decent statement. You know, I thought.
Like, you just got that is so
I mean,
stupid.
it's boilerplate for this situation. Yeah.
I mean, it didn't say the wrong thing. At least, you know.
No.
But I mean, the bottom line for me is, I get it from a football perspective, but I just cannot get behind bringing a guy in who was in jail pending a domestic violence charge on Sunday morning. I can't
have
get
enough
behind
trouble with Adrian Peterson being on this team.
Yeah,
This makes it only worse.
I just can't get behind it. I'm not going to
Yeah.
abandon the team or anything over it, but I just can't support it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, and I guess I'll end mine as well. I agree with what you're saying, Steve, in terms of the PR, the public relations is not a good look. Any like the statement that they said, it didn't help their case at all. It was contradictive. But I understand it from a football perspective. However, at the end of the day, now that he's here, I can't do anything. So for me, I'll just hold off until we find out for sure what happened, concrete information. But yeah, initially I was against it. We could have done something different, but it's wait and see mode for me now. Doesn't mean that I approve of the process that transpired after the waiver claim and anything. It was a mess. Still is a mess.
Yeah, Steve, you just messaged me. We did do a poll on this. What can you read the poll and just give us the results?
We didn't ask for comment.
We have 3 minutes to do the Eagles now.
We didn't ask for comments or anything. The poll question was, how do you feel about this Ruben Foster move? And some of you did not like my choices. Hey, sorry, sue me.
Yeah, you talk about 4 choices and you only gave people 3 this time, man.
I just
want 4.
I just couldn't come up with a decent 4th choice. I was having a brain fart when I did this.
The 4th choice could always be burn it down.
The 4th choice should have been meh or not sure. That's what the
middle
4th
ground, man. Middle ground, neutral.
The choices were great. I love the move. It's a terrible move, or it's a little risky, but it was a good move. That was my intent. That one was supposed to be the middle ground, and I just did a poor job on it. But the bottom line is that, and so 18% thought it was a great move, loved it. 63% picked the middle ground, which was, for me was, it's a little risky, but it's a decent move. And then 19% of you thought it was a terrible move. So that was the poll. That's how the public generally feels about it. It's bell curve. Imagine that. There's a small number that really thought it was great.
Shocker.
A small number of you thought it was a terrible move, and the rest of you are in the middle. So that was the poll.
It's kind of like how our political system really is. It's 20 people on the extremes, and everyone else doesn't give a shit. Well, all right. So I did mention it. We do have to talk about the Eagles. We went a little long on Foster. That was not meant to be a
Nobody's
pun.
cutting us off the air.
Yeah, that's true. So let's talk about the Eagles. Let's get started on this real quick, and let's talk about the Redskins' offense and what can Colt McCoy do against this Eagles defense. And Jamal, I'm going to start with you, and I want your thoughts on where the Redskins' offense needs to start versus the Eagles.
All right, cool. So my issue, all right, put it this way. Where they need to start is they need a more balanced offensive game plan, and they need to hone in and reel in Colt McCoy, calm his ass down, because we got a football game to win. I personally think last week, I don't necessarily, I understand coaches have their errors. I'll put it out this way. I understand that. But when I analyze games, if I had to give a percentage, I always analyze games where it's 80% on the players because they have to execute. And with that being said, last week, Jay really got carried away. And you can tell that because of the quarterback difference, a simple quarterback difference. Adrian Peterson ran the ball about 12 times, I think, last week. And note that we were up 3 with 24 minutes left in the game. We were up 3 points. You're not out of the game at all. You have no reason to abandon the run. We had about 15 carries from running backs, period. I think Capri Bibbs had 2 carries, and then Byron Marshall, I believe. Either way, we have about 15 carries total with running backs. Point being, you need to remain true to what got you to 6 wins in the first place, which is Adrian Peterson in the ground game. That's what got you to 6 wins. It's always been about the ground game. It's always been about controlling the line of scrimmage. When it comes to this Philadelphia game, it will be no difference. Yes, their defensive line is pretty good. It's respectable. However, you can still run on them. You can run on a lot of teams. And that's something that Jay Gruden has to understand. Do not get carried away with the fact that you have Colt McCoy, a guy who's been in your system for 5 years. You have to win ball games. Stop trying to prove a point. We got to win, and it's no more excuses. None of that BS. It's go time, and the way you win is through Adrian Peterson.
And I would, to your point about the winning through the run game, I watching the last couple games that the Eagles have played, this team can be run on. If you get past that defensive line, not offensive line, you can get some pretty big runs on these guys because their linebackers don't seem to get to the running backs quickly a lot of times.
It's funny you say that because I have numbers to back up what you just said. This team...
Okay, I haven't even looked at numbers, so go ahead.
Because, that's what I do. They're giving up 4.9 yards per attempt this year. 28th in the NFL. They're giving up 103.6 yards per game. And they're not getting run on a lot. The yardage would be a lot more, but for some people are passing a lot on them. It's just the nature of playing. I mean, they've only had 233 rushing attempts against them, which is the second lowest in the NFL. But people are averaging almost 5 yards a carry against this team. I think this defense has been a shell of itself. It's been inconsistent. Yes, they have a great front, front four. Michael Bennett, Tim Jernigan, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. These guys are all quality players, and all pros in some cases, but they haven't got it done this year. They've been run on a lot. And so, I think, you get back to what got us here is Adrian Peterson and strong offensive line play. The other thing is that sets up the short passing game, and that's the other thing we can do well. You do not want Colt McCoy to sling the ball all over the place. I think we saw last week that that's going to go wrong. But the other thing is, this Eagles secondary are full of, like, misfits and dudes who should be working at Taco Bell. Jalen Mills, Rasul Douglas. These guys are nothing to shake a stick at. They have tons of problems in their secondary. So I think if you follow the script and don't get crazy like you did last week, let AP run the ball straight down their throats, set up the play action. Do not have Colt McCoy on 7-step drops all the time. This is not Tom Brady. This is Colt McCoy. Have him moving. Have him on play action. You have one of the best tight ends in football. You run those short tight end, type routes, dig routes, sideline routes, and things will go much better. This is a team that can
another
move the
thing,
ball on.
Just to double check, because I've been busy. Is Thompson coming back? Is Chris Thompson coming back for us this week? It looked like it was promising.
Because the game's on Monday, we're recording this on Wednesday night. We do not have an injury report from the team yet.
Oh, okay.
Because that comes out, will come out on Thursday. But
he was practicing,
Thompson
right?
was apparently practicing on Wednesday, so that's a good sign. Jamison Crowder practiced a little bit. That was a good sign. So we may get some guys back.
I think this would be a great game to use a guy like Thompson. I think his speed would be a big mismatch versus the Eagles, especially you get him on a couple flat passes. He'll torch him for 20 yards.
Thompson does that to a lot of people, and especially this team. I just don't think this defense is the same. They lost a lot of talent.
No, they're not.
They lost a lot of coaching talent, when they won the Super Bowl. They've just been weirdly inconsistent. They got annihilated by the Saints, 48-7, which is, everybody gets annihilated by the Saints, but last year's team wasn't giving up 48 points to anybody, and this year's team did. You know, they let the Titans score 26 points on them. The Buccaneers scored 27 points on them. From a yardage perspective, the Saints ran up almost 550 yards. Bucks 436. Dallas ran up 410 yards. I think they can move the ball. The problem is, seems to me, the Redskins have been historically awful on Monday Night Football. They've been historically awful night games, and every time Jay Gruden's teams have a big game, they seem to crater. And so they have the tide of history is kind of against this team winning this game. I won't make you guess, but I went back and counted the Redskins' record on Monday Night Football going all the way back to the start of the franchise. They're 30-44 on Monday Night Football, but 1-9.
They probably won all 30 before 1996.
Well, it's funny you say that. We're 1-9 in the last 10. 4-16 in the last 20, and 4-16 is like worse than the Cleveland Browns. Okay, that's like the worst.
Yeah, no, we're terrible.
Because they don't be on Monday nights, so they got a lower chance of being that terrible of a percentage.
If you're doing a survivor pool, pick against the Redskins anytime they're playing on a Monday night.
Last 30, they're 6-24 in their last 30 appearances on Monday Night Football. That would be like the worst team in the NFL. Night games, I didn't go all the way back to the beginning of night games. It was too much. Last 20 night games were 5-15. So
they're not good. Not good at all. All right. Well, anything else? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, we didn't talk. We didn't even mention
on the offense.
Yeah, I'll just say I spoke on the run game and the offensive line being dominant, but it's also another game for Colt McCoy. It's a big game for Colt McCoy. I mean, and it's a big game for Jay Gruden, honestly. And the reason being is simply because when you have a quarterback like him, you have to make sure that you coach him up. Even if you have a guy that you're confident in, you have to coach him up and play into his strengths, and make sure that he is in a position to minimize his mistakes. Obviously, we understand that he's a risk taker, and that's been displayed in his 2 games that he's played in. But there is an opportunity here to make a playoff run, and you need him to play smart football. You can be aggressive and still play smart. You have to be precise with your chances and the risks that you take. And I think that does come into play calling as well. You have to understand that there are certain areas of the field that you can work at a certain point of the game, and then there's shot plays that you take. And I think that's the type of quarterback that he is. He will take that shot, but you have to make sure that you control him within the game. So it's a big game. It's a big game for Jay, and it's a big game for Colt too. And the odds are stacked against them, but they got to get that shit done offensively.
And Steve, closing thoughts on
one
offense.
thing to point out about the Philadelphia defense. This stat is courtesy of ESPN's ESPN's NFL matchup show Twitter feed. They pointed out that the Eagles blitz less than almost any team in the NFL. And yet from a sacks perspective, despite the lack of blitzing, they have 28 sacks on the year, which is at least fair to middling. It's in the middle of the pack. The reason for that is that Michael Bennett, who is who's on a defensive lineman, is their leading sacker, 6.5 sacks. They have a very high quality defensive line still. At the core of the group, not Bennett, but the rest of them are, the core of the Super Bowl team. And so it's going to be very important for the offensive line to not stink up the joint like they have, like they did last week. It's going to be a game in which the offensive line needs to protect Colt McCoy. They don't need to get manhandled like the Cowboys did at times. So watch for that.
All right. Well, why don't we flip over to the defense versus Carson Wentz and the Eagles' offense? The Eagles, Wentz has been putting up solid numbers since coming back, statistically speaking, but he struggled versus clearly New Orleans. It didn't look great versus the Giants in my mind. He looked good, not great. Is that are the numbers just a product of the modern NFL in his case, or what are you guys seeing on the Eagles' offense?
No, I mean I think Carson Wentz is a franchise quarterback. I think he is that good. I mean, he's putting up, numbers, solid numbers like he did before he got hurt last year. It's almost 70% completion percentage, which in today's NFL is amazingly good, but not great. He's got a quarterback rating over 100. I mean, I think he's the real deal, which is unfortunate, for the Redskins, but I think he's the real deal. I mean, the Eagles rely on Zach Ertz, their tight end.
Right.
He's their number one target by a long shot. 111 targets on the year, almost 900 yards receiving. I didn't look this up, but I have to think him and Travis Kelce are probably the two top yardage getters for tight ends in football right now.
Probably.
So with the Eagles, it's on terms of passing, it's Ertz, Nelson Aguilar, and Alshon Jeffrey. And then to a lesser extent, the other tight end, Dallas Goedert, gets some touches. But the Redskins have to take away Zach Ertz, favorite target of Carson Wentz. So what does this mean? It means we need linebackers. It means we need quick, fast linebackers who are good in coverage, which unfortunately Mason Foster, Zach Brown, neither of them is their strength. But that having been said, they've been better against tight ends than this year than they have historically, which has been awful.
The Redskins have been better against tight ends, not because of them, but because of the money backer.
Yeah,
their third guy that they've been bringing in. That's been the key.
Yeah. So that to me stopping. Oh, and the other thing about the Eagles is we're going to see more of Josh Adams. He hasn't played much. He's been hurt, and he hasn't played much. But Doug Peterson flat out said that he's going to be the principal running back. And so Adams is a much better running back than the other two guys they have, Wendell Smallwood, Corey Clement. Those guys are kind of, sort of guys. But Josh Adams is averaging over 5 yards per attempt. This is another guy who's a bit under the radar, who, if the Redskins aren't careful, is going to have another banner day against them because – let me tell you, I mean, it's nothing new, but the Redskins' run defense has gone absolutely in the toilet, in the past few weeks.
It has.
They're giving up 135 yards a game on the ground over the past 4 games. I already did the math.
Wow. I mean, I didn't realize it was that bad.
Yeah. It went from 70 or 80 to over the first, 7 games, however long it's been since. But now it's over the last 4. It's over 135.
And here comes another good quality running back for another week.
Adams has some really impressive speed when you watch him.
Yeah.
He gets through the hole and he just starts going straight up field.
I mean, believe it or not, Philly is actually a ball controlled offense this year. They're second in time of possession in the NFL, which I didn't realize that. But when you're thinking about what they do, Zach Ertz and a running back, it shouldn't surprise you that they're a ball control offense. So
go ahead. I was going to say here's how they match up well against our defense. First off, our secondary's been struggling recently, as well as our front seven. I have no doubt, I have no doubt that Adams is going to have some success on the ground. Whether he tops 100, I don't know. However, he will be close to 4 yards a carry, if not well over 4 yards a carry against us. It's up to the defense to prove me wrong, but over the last 4 games, you could tell that they're on the slide. There's nothing that's going to change about this unless they change or get back to their old ways. And right now, they're on the slide. And the way that they're playing undisciplined football and they're missing tackles and missing their assignments, not being in the right lane, then it's hard to really say that this is going to change. But to my original point, they're going to be able to have some success on the ground. And what's even more of an issue is that their receiving core is actually healthy. They have Golden Tate, they have Alshon Jeffrey, and they still have Nelson Aguilar along with Jordan Matthews. I'm not saying Jordan Matthews is amongst those 3 as one of the better receivers. However, he's a complement to an offense if he's not your first or second option. And now you have to deal with these 4 receivers, and you have struggles communicating well in the secondary and being on the same page. Alshon Jeffrey essentially worked your defense last year, as well as Zach Ertz, because Zach Ertz eats every time that he plays you. So you're going to have struggles against this offense, and they match up well. They have matchup issues or matchup advantages galore amongst their entire offense. And if you don't get home and sack Carson Wentz and provide pressure, he's gonna eat you up all day. It's a perfect remedy type of game for them in terms of offensively. They was trailing 19-3 against the Giants. They can get off to a fast start if the Redskins do not execute well, and it's gonna be a problem if they don't get off to that fast start. In terms of the Redskins defense.
And I'd add to that, to what he just said, Carson Wentz is a lot more mobile than you might think for such a big guy. And he's a really big quarterback, but he's another guy who can run and who can get yardage if you let him out of the pocket. And so it becomes all the more important for these defensive ends, looking at you, Ryan Kerrigan and Preston Smith, to not just get on ESPN's pressure stats, but actually get quarterback hits. You have to against a guy like Wentz.
And more importantly, make sure those hits wrap up.
Yeah.
Wentz is very good at escaping, what looks like to be a sure sack.
And what have we seen from the Redskins defense the past several weeks?
A lot of that.
Horrible tackling. I mean, this is Jamal is right. It's a good matchup for the Eagles. It's a really tough matchup for the Redskins. And all the drama that's going on, on top of that, with the Redskins, with this Foster situation, Monday Night Football, we know. I just told you guys how that goes. It's
this ain't gonna go well.
It might be a negative overall event.
All right. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh, Steve, you wanted to go over the Michael Bennett criminal case real quick?
I thought we kind of ran out of time for that, but since you brought it up, I did. If you guys recall, Michael Bennett was charged with injury to the elderly in
fist fighting grannies or something.
Yeah, in Harris County, Texas. This was as a result of the 2016 Super Bowl in Houston. So I was curious as to what the status of his criminal case was, since we're playing him this week. And as it turns out, he is supposed to have a hearing today, November 28th. To dispose of this case, and that got reset to January. So this is a felony, and he was indicted by a grand jury. So it's a serious case, but his case got kicked into January. His attorney is known as the top criminal defense attorney in the city. So he's got, this is the same. His attorney's the same guy who represented Roger Clemens in the perjury case. Rusty Harden. So he's got the best attorney, but this case has been officially kicked until after the season.
Well, Steve, you and Rusty go play some golf.
I do
or something.
know Rusty a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not on his Christmas card list, but I do know him a little bit.
Well, I mean, you're in that seat.
I know the DA.
So
I do know the DA on a personal level, though. And
big time.
Well, her office was 2 doors down from me at one point in time. I know her well. I worked on cases with her. And for those of you wondering about this, she is not the type of person who would grandstand to get attention. She would only prosecute a case. I can say this from personal experience. She would only prosecute a case if she thought the evidence was there. And so this is not a case, and she's a liberal Democrat, by the way. And so this is not a case of, a Michael Bennett is getting persecuted because of his political, stance at the national anthem, nothing like that. I can vouch for the Harris County DA, and I think she probably believes in the case. Not probably. She believes in the case because she's bringing the case, because I know she wouldn't.
And she has a high win record, it sounds like, from what you're saying.
Well, she was a criminal defense attorney for a long time.
Okay.
So she knows this world, and she's, I believe that because she's involved, that this is a legit case, and the state believes in its evidence.
Okay. Well, that'll be interesting to follow up on. Let's real quick, just quick fire, give me your final scores, and let's wrap this thing up. I'll go first. I think the Eagles take this one from the Redskins, something like 28-10.
I'll go. I think the Redskins lose 28, 28-17, 28-20, something like that.
Okay.
It's It's not going to be that close.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could predict a better thing, but I think you guys are in the right general ballpark. So I'm going to go, just to be different, I will go 24-14 Eagles.
24-14. Classic score prediction right there. 24-14 scores. I feel like an iconic Redskins.
And because we
loss
all
score.
predicted they lose, and we've all been so bad at this year, that probably means they'll win.
You know what? I don't mind predicting a loss and being wrong.
Jamal and I have been horrible at this all year long.
Yeah, this year's been weird.
Yeah.
I've literally, I mean, it's been every single week I've picked the wrong pick.
I've been wrong a lot.
Oh no, actually I was right. I was right last week. I said we was going to lose and we lost. Hell yeah, let's go.
I've been right.
I'm playing.
I've been real good in the early season predictions, but that's about it. All right, well, that should do it for this week's episode of The Hogsty. Tune in. Man, it's going to be tough. We're going to have a lot of shows really tied together next week because it's a Monday night game. But tune in for those. I don't know if we'll do a Hogsty late night or not. We're going to have to discuss that, boys. Yeah, we're going to have to talk this over. But tune in for that. Keep following us on Twitter. Keep reading our blog posts and our podcasts. Other podcasts and all that fun stuff. And other than that, just enjoy your holiday season that's coming up.